Hey guys, and welcome back. So for those of you around the world, and especially in America, and especially if you're Asian American and you think that Asian people don't get politically active, they're so quiet, they don't speak up, they don't do anything, well, at least let me tell you what they do in Korea, because they are willing to go to even levels of slut shaming. I always get upset when people say like, oh, it's not in our Asian culture to speak up, or oh, it's not, and these are like pretty much like people on maybe the liberal side, or people who are supposedly more aware of their culture and community, who are sometimes saying this, that this is not in our culture. Well, if you look at what is going on right now in Korea, you would be shocked. And it's not the young people doing this. When I said slut shaming, I meant slut shaming, and it was by old people. Old people are doing this. Like when I say old, maybe like at least 50s, 60s, like that seems to be like the core group of people who are really into politics as a hobby. Now, we do know on the conservative side, Yoon Seok-yeol is the leading candidate. He just decided to go into the main opposition party, which is the Conservative Party. Now, the cool thing about politics in Korea is that the parties are a little bit more numerous than in America. So it's a little bit more like the European Parliament, and they frequently change. So it's as if like the Democrats or Republicans, they would frequently change their leadership and also the party name even. Similar to, I guess, what they do probably in more of a European sense. The personalities, the players, the factions, the teams, the sub-teams pretty much stay similar, but the names always change. So anyhow, so the leading candidate, Yoon Seok-yeol, had decided to go into the main opposition party, and he is still the front runner, but in order to, I guess, lob an attack on him, they're still going after his wife. Now, his wife did deny all of these rumors that she used to work at the Renaissance Hotel Volcano Club as like a hostess, or she was involved in some sort of job that involved pouring drinks or entertaining men. And so I think one of you in the comments said, like in one of the other videos, you're like, oh my God, so our next first lady is a pro? And I forgot when people, use that term, not professional, but something else. So yeah, some of you guys might be referring to that. It's not necessarily clear to what extent these rumors are going towards, what range of that spectrum is. But if you have seen some of my other videos, you can kind of get a sense of what world that is, at least, and what the range is between like being totally like selling and sort of selling. So anyhow, the big slut shaming thing, because she's being accused of like leaping from like powerful guy to powerful guy to powerful guy to advance her own interests, well, there is a bookstore, like a building with like a pretty large used bookstore, and on one of the walls, somebody had decided to paint a series of murals, and it had the theme of Julie's men. So one of the actual panels listed her alleged prior boyfriends. Starting from the year 2000, we have a doctor, 2005, a chairman. 2006, a public prosecutor. 2006, prosecutor Yang. So sometimes they will list the actual last name. And so he was the one that is being accused of going on the trips. And then that's the guy that KBS Hot Daddy was really focusing in on and saying, like, did you get money from her mother, basically the Yoon Seok-yeol's wife's mother, when you were dating her? That's the accusation. 2007, BM representative or kind of like an officer or director. 2008, an announcer. 2009, then Yoon Seok-yeol. And then soon afterwards, a few years later, they get married. So this is a wall of shame. Or is it? Now, if you look at it from a political angle, what they're trying to make a point of is that she is accused of being in the business of corrupting and manipulating the system in order for her to bend what the rules are. So if you remember, her mother was involved in a lawsuit where it looked like, according to KBS Hot Daddy, that the mother wanted it all in a deal over some sort of real estate, and she was basically going to screw another guy, the guy that actually created the opportunity, out of his fair share. And by playing the victim and saying like, oh my god, he was attacking me, whereas like it made almost no sense. Like, he had the deal, he was just looking for an investor to go in 50-50, and she said that he was threatening him to go 50-50, but yet the real agreement was that she would get 100%. What kind of guy would give 100% to this lady? It makes absolute no sense. Like, why would you give? But it doesn't make sense, right? But if she won on some strange kind of technicality, where they were able to blame somebody like a third party, like the Jason. They were able to blame somebody, but she was still able to keep the money because of a legal maneuver, loophole, trick that she's being accused of having the help of a prosecutor. So with this wall of Julie's men, it's sort of like this indictment against like, wow, this is why when, you feel like you're going to go to court for a fair shot, you've already lost the moment you walked in, because maybe there is something behind the scenes that involves someone like Julie and her man. That's the accusation. Now, if you didn't see the other video, basically, they are accusing Yoon Seok-yeol's wife of being that bar hostess at the Renaissance Hotel Volcano Club in the early 2000s and using the name Julie. So you know how like in the other video we had the girl use a fake name Kiki? So Julie apparently is the name that she is being accused of. Now she said like, if it were true, there'd be people coming out and who have, said stuff. Like, nobody has come out and said anything, and there's no like evidence. On the other hand, because this was a long time ago, these guys who would have been there are probably married and with kids, and probably would not be like volunteering and saying like, oh yeah, I knew Julie, Julie, It might be a little bit different in other countries, but at least in Korea, nobody would even walk near that bucket of worms if they didn't have to. So there is still a big question mark, although she has denied it. But there's not a question mark about some of the shady antics of the mother. And in a separate real estate kind of violation gone bad, she also had her business partners go to jail, and she should have gone to jail or should have been punished, but she wasn't even cleared of the crime. It was as if her portion of that trial was just paused. And it was like paused like forever. And people are like, you can't do that. You can't do that without some sort of behind the scenes connection. So again, that's why people are really upset about the Julies of Korea going around and manipulating things just because, like, she gets to be Julie and she gets to have her way on things. Now, the building owner is apparently the same owner as the bookshop guy. And when the conservative people who are Yoon supporters were like, this is horrible, this is defamation, this is crazy, how could you do this? So they did two things. Like, one, they went to go find the building owner to see if like they could be like, look, yo, your building is like messed up and like, you know, being used for political purposes. But turns out that building owner was like the bookshop owner, and he kind of ordered the murals and he wants it, he likes it. He's just like, well, if it's true, then I guess we could take it down, but they would have to admit to it first and then we can take it down. So he's kind of playing around with this logic as well, this kind of legalese. He's basically saying like, well, who is Julie anyway? Like, nobody knows who Julie really is because they're just using this fictional name Julie. But girl, if you say you're Julie and you feel defamed by this, okay, well, we'll take it down. And then they're like, but you said you're Julie. And so that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to like nab her on this and say like she is, you know, Julie from the block. And so this has gone out of control because then like these older conservative people, they came in with their vans. They came in with their vans and started blocking the mural, like illegally parking there, saying like, we gotta park here. And they were like trying to cover it with umbrellas, like not let anybody look at it. And then they were starting to get into like fights on the street. The police were coming, trying to tone things down. But as you can see, these are very politically active people. I mean, no matter how bad maybe the mural might be, the slut shaming might be, whether it's like very right or very left, whether you agree with these tactics or not, whether you believe in the Julie story or not, you can see that there is a lot of effort and a lot of passion by the Korean public, especially among the middle-aged crowd, going out and pushing for their political beliefs. Now, even while there was live coverage of this on, you know, Mr. Shin's YouTube channel, and Harry Potter and the Girl were like covering it, they were like looking at the live feed, and they were even having trouble like trying to figure out who was on which side. I mean, that's kind of like my point, is like at the end of the day, from where I am, if I just go on an airplane back to America, I have to join political forces with, you know, Korean people's arch rivals like the Japanese community, the Chinese community, even like the Indian community that, you know, Korean people feel like no connection at all. We are all on one team, baby. In America, we're all Asian American. So when I look at these people fighting here, I mean, to them, it's a huge gulf, right? To be for Yoon Seok-yeol or for the other candidate, there is like a Grand Canyon between them. But I just see like a dotted line. Really. What I like to focus on, though, is what they believe and share that with you, and so that you can get both sides, because we serve stuff from both kitchens on the Seoulite. We do not try to push like either agenda for agenda's sake, like maybe ideologies, maybe like there will be like some sort of slant here or there, but in terms of the way people behave and whether they abuse power, they come from all sides. And so that's what I want to bring. So that's why, you know, I think some people like, you know, even if Mr. Shin's watching this, he's probably like, what is, I don't understand like where this guy is politically. But literally, it's basically, if you are a power abuser and you're acting all sorts of fool, and it might be interesting for other people to kind of see, then that's why you show up here. That's why you will be here. Okay, so that's the wall. That's not even it. Next, we have a music video about Julie. Yeah, it's called Nice Julie. And it's made by a singer that I have no idea who he is. He's in his late 40s. His name is Baekja. He debuted in 1997 in a group called Haehwadong Purun Sam. So it's like Haehwadong is like kind of the cool like theater arts community in Seoul, and then Purun Sam like blue-green island. So anyhow, so he does a lot of political activism apparently with his music, but he's also kind of like, well, trying to go against corruption, but he's also very anti-American, and so totally though politically up this alley in terms of writing a song that makes fun of Julie. Now that's the smart thing I think they're trying to do, is that they're making fun of Julie, who is this mythical or kind of perhaps fictional goddess of the Renaissance Hotel, of the Volcano Club, Julie, the Julie who gives herself to the gentleman of Seocho. So Seocho, that is where the police department is that is handling the SJM investigation. It's a district within Gangnam. Seocho is also where the main court is for the Republic of Korea and Seoul. So if you have like the major case in Korea, like legally, if you have a major case, it is going to be in Seocho. So those are the guys, those are the big shots in Seocho. And actually, Samsung Electronics, their big building in Gangnam, is not actually, if you look at the address, like Gangnam, it's Seocho, but it's basically like across the street from the official Gangnam. So some of the lyrics though, I mean, it's a very poetical, and I think it has a lot of double entendre. So even Korean people were like trying to have to like interpret it, because there's one thing about like, Nice Julie is the ace of the black bean paste. Ace refers to like if you're like the number one, or like you're the totally like the hottest girl or most requested girl at like the room salon, they'll always call, that's what it means like when you get the title of ace. So they're basically saying she's an ace of, and then black bean paste, apparently that's like Yoon Seok-yeol likes jjajangmyeon, like the black bean noodles or something like that's what I heard some other commentators say. And they even made a dig at her mom, daughter of the business queen, but doesn't give anything away for free. Nice Julie dreams of being the nation's mother. Even wild boars will keep laughing. Now, I think that's a Korean saying that I'm not familiar with. If you can educate me on that, that would be interesting. But they're basically now going into this double entendre with the sound of Julie in Korean language. So they're saying like if the wild boars that are laughing split their sides, there's no way of stopping it from ripping. 막아줄리 없네. So they didn't say Julie's name in that phrase that I just said. That basically means like you can't block it. But it sounds like Julie when you're singing it, so it's kind of smart. They do it again because you want to do the repetition in the stanzas. So it says, "Nice Julie, Julie who has no greed." Ironic. There's no way of stitching your sides back up. 깨매 줄리 없네. So that's like again 줄이, but that's not Julie in Korean. It's just basically a sentence construction that's more grammatical. So wow, so they kind of did all of that singing, a music video. And so people are a bit divided, of course, on this, depending on what side you're on. And then some of the conservatives are like, well, then why did you guys block our release of that recording of Lee Jae-myung's wife totally abusing her niece on the phone? Because, it's like blocked, but you can still get it on the Seoulite. And so they were like, well, why don't we play that all around town and book, concert arenas and just play it? I think you should. I really think you should. Because here on the Seoulite, we want it to come from both sides. We want all of that out there. And so, sure, I think
사실
that's
입고
why
있다며.
I had to cover it, because
사실
I
아닌 거
felt
내가
like people
보여줄게.
needed to see that or listen to that tape. And then also with this whole situation with Julie, it's a little bit unfortunate, I think, that it seems a little like slut-shamey. On the other hand, I did want to show you how Korean people are extremely politically active to this extent. So no excuses over in America, where if the people who you think are old in Korea are making music videos, painting on buildings, and decorating their vans with political messages, you can't say political activism is not in our culture, okay? Again, like I said, there's probably too much. Now, speaking of yelling and screaming, and a little bit of an update on the SJM story, you know how there was a lot of criticism about SBS's show and that documentary, how it really slanted itself against the actual topic of trying to figure out what happened to SJM? There was, remember in the show, some footage of protests of parents, going out there showing their grief. Now, the SBS team was there, and that was probably about May 16th, similar to the time frame where SJM's dad said he met that producer for the first time. Well, we just saw this video that got released like yesterday. And it was of May 16th when that SBS crew was filming. Now, these were YouTubers, and the YouTubers, remember, they were attacked. They were attacked for being like false news and trying to take advantage of the situation to earn money and stuff. And so the SBS team, instead of filming the demonstration, they started filming the YouTubers themselves. And the YouTubers were like, what are you doing? And then they heard the producer saying like, yes, these YouTubers, like they have like their kind of like their Patreon address, or like their in Korea the popular thing is like you can put like a bank account that you can send donations to, and they're like, yeah, they're just trying to like grab money from this. And they got really upset, and they're just like, you guys are not filming what's going on here. We came out to film to see all of the parents who decided to show up and express their grief and wanted to see justice done and the truth revealed. And they were really upset, but they were fast. Like, I would be, if I was there, I'd probably be like, oh, you don't know if they're like, like they have like any ill intent. Like they were probably just trying to also like show YouTube. Like these YouTubers, they knew what was up. They knew exactly like that they were being attacked. So even then, just like the way SJM's dad said, like they had already picked their course of how they're going to manipulate this story. And even the YouTubers were able to pick up on that right away and knew that there was something shady going on with that show. So that I thought was extremely interesting, and I think that does add again to SJM's dad's case, that the show was heavily slanted to try to get the nation thinking in a particular way, and that is so scandalous because it seems so coordinated and so manipulative, which means that justice can be bought and sold like this, and we are not safe if this happens successfully. We're just not safe. Just not safe. Just not safe. There's a lot more fearlessness I'm sensing with like the YouTubers, the activists, the people who are just expressing their democratic voice. And I think this is a great evolution for Korea's democracy, because in a way we've sort of had like a democratic imperial like rule here, and this is really facilitated by shutting up the voice of the citizens. And now that the citizens are just feeling more free to speak, we can see more of these democratic forces develop. Yes, it can be a little bit messy here and there, but then that doesn't necessarily mean you throw it all out. Like, you know, if a teenager goes through their kind of wild hormonal yields, that doesn't mean like you throw away the teenager. You kind of like wait for it to grow. And I can't believe I said it. You kind of wait for them to grow up. But the scandalous thing is that the current government, the current liberal government, is trying to pass more restrictive free speech legislation to tamp down on this. And that is getting people a little bit upset. But this is the funny part now. Because the worlds are overlapping, if they try to create restrictions, they're shooting themselves in the foot. And the same thing, if the right tries to do it, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Yeah, they will not be able to attack the other side without attacking their rights as well. So everybody seems to be wanting more freedom of speech rights as long as it's not for the other side. Now that part hasn't changed in the fight and then the mentality. It's not necessarily you're fighting for everybody. The fight is still for like, I'm fighting for my side and for you not to have what I have. And that needs to change, where like the fight is about what everybody gets, because it is one country, right? And it's supposed to be one system. You can't just have punitive laws for a group of people. And so what do you think? Is it slut shaming to put all of her past boyfriends on the wall? Or is it actually a public service? Because let's say you are one of those people that got really screwed from her being able to manipulate and get the prosecutors on her side. I mean, one guy is out $2.5 million. I bet he helped buy some of the paint. So is it fair? I don't know. But it has been covered up and defaced by the conservatives. They kind of painted over a lot of the wall. Alright guys, well that's it for today. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.